One of my favorite Eisenhower stories, which I believe is true, one of his greatest mistakes was that the CIA was not supposed to be operational. Of course, it's one of the most interesting things you can get from Prouty is how it immediately turned into an operational agency, both domestic and foreign, not just intelligence gathering.
And it wasn't even supposed to gather intelligence. It was supposed to coordinate the gathering of the intelligence.
Exactly.
And come up with the analysis.
Exactly.
And then it went to collection, which became a primary front, as he maintains, for the fun and games.
Right. But here's the worst part. He put them in charge of security for Area 51. And between that and the hidden system of finance created by the seizures after World War II, he turned the CIA into the most powerful bank in the world. The most powerful bank in the world. And that is truly frightening. Anyway, so he had authorized them to do security on Area 51. And suddenly they stonewalled him. He wasn't getting briefed. So he calls them and demands they come in for a briefing. And finally, they won't. They're basically defying the president. And he tells them that he is going to fly to Colorado, get the First Army, and invade Area 51 unless they're in his office the next day to brief him. Now, what's interesting is Eisenhower truly had leadership capacity. The military would do what he said. He was admired, he was respected, he was followed by the military. After Eisenhower, there was no president who could command that loyalty because we know the military stood down at Dallas, which leads us to the Kennedy assassination, which after Prouty, reading and understanding the Kennedy assassination is the single most important thing you can do to really see the deep state.
Dulles basically stacked the deck, hoping that Kennedy would get in over Nixon, which was kind of bizarre because they felt they could control him more.
Kennedy better than Nixon.
Yeah, because he wasn't sophisticated, he's coming in, he's young, his father was in organized crime. And then what they found out was he was a little bit smarter than what they expected. And also he was a little bit more principled, a lot more principled than what they expected. And Robert was a real pain in the ass.
Right.
And having both of them there was a major problem. But what Prouty comes out and says very basically, these guys didn't have a chance against the entrenched powers when they came in. And when he finally decided to pass the National Security Advisement that said, we're going to get out of Vietnam, all American personnel are going to be out of Vietnam by 65, and he basically was committed to winding down the war. He said that was his death warrant.
Right.
So there's a constant theme that comes up. Anybody that's working for peace and gets close and has the power to make it happen, okay, is going to be prevented from making that happen.
I think there are a couple of issues. There's a model. Anybody who tries to change the model is a problem. And the model is, number one, running a war economy. Number two, letting the banks and the secret team control the reserve currency. Because the governance structure of the secret team controls the central banks, right?
Yes. In other words, Kennedy basically tried to short circuit many third rails.
Right.
The Federal Reserve Bank, and because he wanted, he was starting to have the Secretary of the Treasury do what he was supposed to do and issue, real U.S. money. U.S. Steel he went against. He went against the oil guys trying to get rid of the oil depletion allowance.
Right.
He went against the military, and it's basically what stopped the Vietnam War. He went against the major intelligence agency, CIA, that was running the show by firing the top
Dulles.
three guys
Right.
and calling them on Bay of Pigs.
Right.
And he also took away the ability for the CIA through another National Security Advisement document that the military was now going to be in charge of all covert operations, not the CIA, which it weaseled its way in over time to be that basically was in charge of it. So he did so many things that disrupted so many, never mind the military contracts that he had rewarded to certain companies that didn't want to go there. The military guys didn't want to go there because that would give them the most political leverage in these districts. He touched almost every third rail that there was, trying to short circuit it. But all I'm saying is, from Prouty's perspective, when he said when we're getting out of Vietnam, that was his death warrant. That's the way that he describes it.
So I would probably disagree with Prouty there, because I think it was a couple of things across the model, including, so we talked about currency, we talked about war. I would also say secrecy. Kennedy was looking to make the world a much less secret place. And the secret team's power very much depends on secrecy.
Prouty's whole thesis is that secrecy is a disease that has cost us huge amounts of personal capital, money capital, all kinds of resources. And it is a disease that is absolutely destroying democracy and turning it into a fascist state.
Well, I will tell you, the minute that the general leadership, the establishment in Washington, in my opinion, accepted the Federal Accounting Standard Board policy, this is the equivalent of announcing we're going to be a fascist dictatorship.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.